So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at SQL and how SQL and database link together and how we can use SQL to search through a database. Now, on the screen, you can see a table at the moment. So what I want to do is just have a look at this information, this data. Okay, you can see there's some names, some hobbies, some ages, and some favorite TV programs. So for example, Killian really likes crochet and loves Shimmer and Shine as a TV show. Underneath, there's an SQL command. Now, without knowing much about SQL, I want you to have a think about what does this command do? What do you think it might return? So take a moment, just have a think about it. So what this will return is, first of all, it's going to return me just the columns called name and hobby. Okay, so it's only going to return name and hobby. So I'm just going to underline those to make it clear. So just those two are going to come through. And then it says from personal. So the from personal bit basically means which table are we referring to. In this case, this table is called personal. Then it says where age is greater or equal to 14. So we know that symbol from programming already. Well, let's have a look at the age column. Well, there are a number of ages which are 14. So this is 14, this is 14, as well as this one. So the three rows it's going to return is going to be Zara, Ben, and Zara, Karina, and Killian. It will not return Ben because Ben's age is under 14. So that is an example of an SQL select statement. As it turns out, SQL is actually really straightforward for simple selects like this. So this links into programming techniques. SQL is heavily used in programming. However, for the exam, you just need to know how to read an SQL statement, write a simple one, and be able to show the result of one. So when we talk about databases, we're talking about structured organization of data, okay? And databases are all around us. So whenever you buy something at Amazon, your order is going to be stored in a database, the thing you've bought. Your account details are stored in a database. The products themselves are stored in a database. So whenever we interact with a big website, we are going to be interacting with a database. Same goes for if we're interacting with a bank or anything that stores information about us will most likely or most definitely have a database in the background. So we represent information in a database in the form of tables. Okay, so here is the personnel table personal table we just looked at, and this is just an example of what it might look like. There's obviously a lot of theory that goes with databases. It isn't that simple in the real world, so Amazon is not just going to have one big table with all your data in it. However, for GCSE, this is what we need to think about. So there's a couple of terms you need to be aware of when we're talking about databases. First of all, a database where everything is in one single table is known as a flat file database. The reason it's called a flat file database is because you can think of it in this way, that every piece of information that you want to store has all been squished down into a single table, and you kind of like think of squishing something to make it flat, ergo flat file database. Attributes are the columns in a table, so and these are the kind of column headings, so the information that's been stored. So surname, pet type in this example would all be attributes. A record is a collection of related attributes, or put it simply, a row in the table. Okay, so we have a number of rows in this table, so these are essentially the things going across the screen like this. This is a terrible, terrible line, but you get the idea hopefully. So databases can be stored, certainly flat file databases can be stored in a very simple representation. We can store the column headings or the attributes in a list, kind of writing it as a comma, so kind of like you'd write in English. On the next line, we can have the first record, the first information. So in this example, we've got the ID of 1, Living on the Prayer as the song name, artist Bon Jovi, genre rock. Okay, and then each record after that are all put on separate lines. This really simple way of representing a database is known as a comma separated values, or a CSV file. Okay, these files are really easy to make and they're really easy to read in programming, so they're very common for simple bits of data like this. So If you've not done this already, it's a good time to pause the video and to make some notes, okay? So you need to say what a database is, this organization of data, or structured organization of data, should I say. Give an example of a table. You can absolutely take it from this PowerPoint if you've got access to it, or just find a table on the internet. There's a million and one of them. Say what database is, and then define very clearly the term attribute and record. If you want to, you can maybe get a table and just kind of like I did on the slide, just draw a circle around the two key terms. Then also define what a CSV file is. Although you don't need to learn how to code, how to read a CSV file for GCSE, you do need to be aware of what they are and what they look like. So if a question came up about it, you will be able to answer that. So do put that into your notes, please. So, when we are coding, sometimes we may want to kind of code a database structure, okay? So a record is known as a single single row in a database table, okay? And we can represent it as a collection of different pieces of data. So you do need to be aware of this kind of idea of a record, and all you need to know is that a record can store more than one bit of related information. So for example, this record is storing information about a car. So we've got the registration number, the make of it, and the color. These you can think of as variables, okay, or values in the table. Doesn't really matter which way you think about it. And the actual variable names, these attribute names, are kind of like the columns in the table as well. So records, although you don't have to code in them, you do need to be aware of them just in case a question comes up. So obviously there is issues with using CSV files, although they're really easy to code, they're not great. So you do need to know the drawbacks of using it. If you only wanted to change parts of the CSV file, so rather than maybe adding a new record onto it, you want to change one single value, one specific row, that is very difficult to do. Okay, it's not an easy task. If you wanted to search through it, you have to write a lot of code to be able to go through it and find all the different bits and bobs. And to auto manipulate large amounts of data, you really need a database instead. So CSV files are great for really simple data that we don't want to search through, but if you really need the power of a database, you need to be able to search, you need to be able to change stuff, delete stuff, and all that kind of thing. You need a proper database. So if you do have a proper database, and you do want to search through it and maybe find one single record, for example, maybe you're logging onto Amazon, you want to find your account details, think about the sheer number of people who use Amazon, finding your one record, your one logon details out of all of those is a big task. There's a lot of information to sift through. So in order to do that efficiently, to be able to do that quickly, we use a language called SQL, or Simple Query Language. Sorry, structured query language. I always say simple. I shouldn't say simple. It's structured. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a special language used to talk to the database. Okay, it's used to send messages to the database and then receive information back. So the way it works is quite straightforward. You have a database, and a command called an SQL command is sent to it. And it's programmed in a very similar way to you would do in maybe Python. You would type out the command and you then use a tool to send that information to the database. The result will then come back, and it comes back in the form of a table. So you can find and search through a database and return the information back. And this happens every single time you access a database. These commands are sent to the database. It will then send back the information. So how it works is you will first have a database, maybe Amazon or eBay or whatever, and you'll connect to that database. That will most likely require a username and password just to make it secure. You then take your SQL command, whatever you are searching for, and you send it to that database. The database will then, for you, find the right information automatically and create a results table, create a table to send back. And then it will actually physically send that table back. So when it comes back to you, you'll see this table and then you can maybe just view it or maybe use some programming to manipulate and do something with it. So for example, if I was trying to search Amazon for a pair of trainers, for example, I would first of all go onto the Amazon website. The Amazon website would then connect to their databases. They will then send a message saying, please get me all the trainers. The database will find those trainers, create a results table and send the information back. And then Amazon would finally format that in a nice way and send the page back to me so I can see it. So for GCSE, you only really need to know one SQL command, and that is the select command. And as it turns out, select is really straightforward. It allows you to search in a table for certain bits of information, okay? And it has three main parts. It has the select part, it has some kind of from part, and also later on I'm going to learn about the where part. So the first bit we're going to look at is the kind of basic select statement. So here I'm saying select star from customers. So what's being done here is it's saying, okay, select star or select all. The star means all, okay? So it's kind of like, it's formally called a wildcard, but essentially the star means, give me everything, please. Okay, so give me all the attributes, all those columns. And the from part says, well, where do you want it from? Which table do you want information from? In this example, we want information from the customers table. So select commands allow us to search through tables in a database. So let's look at another example. Here I've got a select command and it's returning two fields. So here's the original table. Okay, so this here is my original table called products. Okay, and it contains some information I'm interested in. Now, rather than returning all the information, I only want product name, so this one here, and also the price, which means I won't have unit returned. So the result. So here's the result. Okay, so we've returned the product name. So you can see the first column is the product name and the second column is the price. So this one here is the product name. You see that matches up, and also the price here matches the price here. Notice that there is no unit. So the first select part is basically saying which attributes, which columns do you want to return. So formally, the select statement allows you to say which attributes or which columns you want to return. You can have all of them by writing a star, which is also known as a wildcard. And the second part, the from part, will say, well, which table are you interested in? For GCSE, you'll only really have one table to search through. So it'll be whatever table they say it's called. Okay, so if it says person, it'll be person. If it's car, it'll be car. Whatever they say, it'll be that. So here's another example. So let's say I'm searching for customer name, country from customers. So this example will find me two columns. Okay, it will find me the customer name and the country, and it will return the information from a table called customers. And that would be the result. So now's a time to do some questions on SQL. So this will be shared with you on your OneNote to be able to access this. If you're doing this from YouTube, I will put a link to the file so you can have a go at it as well. And this is just a case of practicing that first idea of just returning specific columns. So just so we're nice and clear about what you need to do, here is the worksheet. Now, you will want to try this out first. So there is a link to a website. So I'm just going to click on that website. This website has a database with tables in it. So I'm just going to maybe shrink this down so we can see it. And you can try the commands out. So here I've got a command to select star from customers. If I run it, you can see the results appear at the bottom. So you can try these SQL commands out. So what I want you to do is, here is an SQL command, and I want you to do the search and then put the results back in. Okay, take a screenshot of the results. Now, only do the first 5 or so, because otherwise the screenshots are just going to be massive. Okay, so the next ones you need to write yourself. So here, the first one, I'll do this one with you. It says, find the first name and birth date of all employees. Well, let's go to the website, okay? And you can see over the side here, it says employees. So I'm going to click on that, okay? And you can see it says select star from employees. And down here, you've got the attributes. So it's got employee ID, last name, first name, blah, blah, blah. So you need to find the first name and birth date of all the employees. So rather than putting a star, we can put first name and birth date. Notice that I'm typing out exactly as it appears down here. Once I've done that, I can run the SQL, and you see here's the results. And then what I can do is take a little mini screenshot of that and paste the results in here. So do have a go at all the other questions and see how you get on. So let's look at the next part, the where clause. Now, the select and from on its own allow us to return just specific columns from a table. That isn't always very useful, because imagine I was looking for trainers and I didn't have a way of restricting the products from Amazon. It would then just return all the products. So can you imagine how many products are on Amazon? Just having all those listed out in one big thing, and you have to kind of manually go through and try and find it yourself, would be an absolute nightmare. So we need a way of restricting down which rows get returned, and that is what the where clause does. It allows us to just return specific rows based on some criteria. The criteria itself will look very, very similar to what we'd see in if statements. So use the same kind of symbols. We have equals, not equals, greater than, less than, things like that. So here, in this example, we've got customer name, city and country from a table called customers. To restrict it, the where clause says where country is equal to Mexico. So have a little quick think. What do you think is going to be returned? So hopefully the answer is not obvious. It's just going to return rows where the country is Mexico. So let's have a look at that. So this is the result of it. You can notice that all the countries here just say Mexico. Okay, you don't get any other countries whatsoever. So that is what the where clause does. It restricts down what gets returned. So you can imagine in Amazon, for example, I do a search for trainers. It will only return products which are trainers, which are that product type. So I don't get all the other products like staplers and whatever else Amazon sells. So let's have a look at another one. What do you think this one's going to return? Okay, so you might not know the exact values, obviously, but what kind of values would you expect to return? So in this scenario, it says where price is greater than equal to 20. So all the prices of every single row that's being returned must be at least equal or larger than 20. And as you can see in the examples here, they are indeed all bigger than 20. So again, what do you think this one produces? Now, hopefully you are familiar with the not equals symbols, the exclamation mark and the equals. If not, it is not equals. So what do you think this one's going to return? Now, this is a little bit of a weird one. It says missing operator return. Now, one of the problems with SQL is that it just uses ever so slightly different syntax to other languages, okay, that you might be familiar with. Interesting enough, exclamation mark equals does work in some databases, but not all. And the database we are using, it just doesn't seem to work. So another way of writing not equals is this. So it is a bit annoying, I'm aware of that. So you have these two kind of greater than less than symbols facing away from one another. It just means not equals. In the exam, if you wrote exclamation mark equals, you're most likely to get the marks anyway, so don't get too worried about it. The only reason I bring it up is because if you see that symbol in the exam and think, what on earth does that mean? Well, it means not equals, okay? So in the exam, you can use whichever, it doesn't really matter. But if you ever see the exclamation, greater than less than symbols facing one off from one another, then it just means not equals. So again, go onto the worksheet, and in a similar format to the previous task, just work your way through, and this time you're working through where clauses and trying to use that. So this is where the homework, for those of you watching this as part of homework, is going to kick in. Okay, it is possible in a where clause to join together more than one clause. And we used and or in the same way we do it in if statements and while loops. So actually it's very, very similar as a concept. So when you have and, the two clauses must both be true for that row for it to be returned. If it's an or, only one of them has to be true. You can see there's that similarity in logic, isn't there? So in this example, it would only return a row where both the country is Germany and the city is Berlin. Now, I'm aware that that maybe is a little bit pointless because I don't know many other Berlins in the world, but hopefully you get the idea. So as you can see, we have another example where country equals Germany or the country is UK. So either of those could be true because or is an either example, isn't it? So you can see in the results, we've got Germany and we've got UK. So both of those are being returned. However, all the other countries are not being returned. Okay. Also notice it's got the wildcard star there, which means it's returning all of the columns. So what do you think this one will return? Have a quick think about it, and then we'll go through the answer. So in this example, the price of each product must be between 10 and 13, not equal to 10 or 13, between those two values. Okay, so you see 12.5 is bigger than 10, but it's also smaller than 13. So this is a way of restricting values to a range of values. Okay, so very similar to the way we do range validation in Python actually. So now it's time to do the last part of the worksheet. Again, go onto the website, try it out, and then take screenshots of your answers in the same way you've done for the other two sections.